fear is part of who we are, evolution. Do you think that we can out-love our fear?
Well, I think that fear is to love what darkness is to light. Darkness isn't a thing, it's the absence of a thing. And I feel the same way about fear. Fear is the root of all negative emotion.
And then as I read your book, for the first time, it opened up a different way of thinking around Jesus.
Jewish people don't have a problem with Jesus. We have an understandable problem at times with the history of Christianity, the Inquisition, pogroms, etc.
Right.
But I also think its popularity emerges from this deep hunger that they call him the hot rabbi. That somebody can be hot, cool, everything you want,
totally.
And his life is about goodness. And that touches something deep. And now I think there's a hunger to see, well, what does the light look like? What does goodness look like? What does character look like? Can that be hot too? Oh yeah. In fact, it might even just save a planet. We have to stop it with are you okay today? What wound, what trauma can we discuss? Not that there aren't wounds and traumas, and I would know actually. But there's a certain point where we need to turn around and say, what great thing are you doing today, and how can I help? There's plenty of room. You take your hours needed to cry, and you get out there and you change the world. I always say you pray in the morning, kick in the afternoon.
I love that. Today's show is brought to you by Brave Healer Productions. Experience what's possible. Coming up on today's show, I am so excited to welcome multiple New York Times bestselling author and spiritual teacher, Marianne Williamson. We are going to be chatting about all things love and how it can truly reshape our world. Plus, we are back in the Joy newsroom with an uplifting tale of compassion and courage that's sure to make your heart take flight. And in an unexpected plot twist, I'll be in the hot seat for my own Sharing with Shari segment. There's a lot of goodness to unpack today, so grab your favorite cuppa and hurry back. It's time for Good Morning Joy. Today's forecast, nothing but good vibes and sunshine. Expect a light breeze to blow away your worries and the kind of sunshine that practically demands you wear sunglasses, even if you're just going to the mailbox. It's one of those days where everything feels like a slow-mo scene from a movie. So whether you're out there crushing your to-do list or just pretending to, make sure to soak it all up. Go ahead, stop and smell a flower, or at least wave at one as you stroll on by. Remember, no matter the weather outside, it's always sunny here in our hearts at Joy News. Keep shining. Over to you, Shari. You probably know her from her groundbreaking work, A Return to Love. But today we are diving into her brand new book, The Mystic Jesus, The Mind of Love. And we are going to discuss and chat about all things love, but really about how this book is the doorway to a deeper and truer part of yourself. I am so thrilled for you to meet and for me to be sitting with spiritual teacher and multiple New York Times bestselling author, Marianne Williamson.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. I will say this. I've had the pleasure and joy of talking to people who I've admired over the years. And I will say that I don't always meet them on their best days. And when I first met you in our first interview, I want to say that you are as kind and gracious as you espouse and loving people to be. And that was like such a joy to feel that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been teaching about love really for over 4 decades. And I'm curious if you feel we are any different now than we were 4 decades ago around this area.
I think 2 things are happening simultaneously. I think on one hand, the culture, something is devolving, almost a new psychological barbarism. Everybody's so judgmental and mean-spirited and jacques and not giving each other benefit of the doubt. A lot of that really exacerbated by social media. Mm-hmm. But I think simultaneously, there is a sense of people having a more enlightened perspective, recognizing the value, the meaning, the purpose, the power of compassion and forgiveness and mercy. It's like two worlds that are happening simultaneously. So yes, we're going through turbulence and chaos and some very mean-spirited times. And at the same time, you can feel, you meet so many people who are reading and writing these kinds of books, doing the kinds of programs that you do. It's a race for time, I think. We have simply got to steer the ship of human history in the direction of the love, in the direction of a more expansive, loving viewpoint. And I think that that is critical to nothing short of the sustainability of life on Earth.
Well, the thing that I've always admired and loved about your work is, of course, that it's central to love. And no matter what work you've done, whether it's in the political field, social activism, any of that, it's always centered around all of us being our best and finding that love within. But you talk often about fear, right? And fear, this is the thing that I've been sitting with about this. Fear is part of who we are, evolution-wise. Like, do you think that we can out-love our fear?
Well, I think that fear is to love what darkness is to light. Darkness isn't a thing, it's the absence of a thing. And you don't get rid of the darkness by analyzing it. You don't get rid of the darkness by hitting it with a baseball bat. You get rid of darkness by turning on the light. And I feel the same way about fear. Fear is the root of all negative emotion. As you were just mentioning, there's such a thing as healthy fear, the knowing not to cross the street when it's a lot of traffic, right. All that kind of
stuff.
Run
from a tiger.
But I think there's a level of fear of one another, fear of life itself, which is not in any way healthy. But it is not so much an aspect of who we are as it is what happens when we are not in touch with who we are. I think who we are is love. Mm-hmm. And, you see this in babies. You see this in the smallest child, They come out, there's this love space, and then we have to teach them to fear. Some of that is, you have to teach your kids, don't walk away with a stranger, et cetera. But there's a different kind of fear, a fear which bespeaks a deep disconnection from who we are, deep disconnection from each other, that is very dangerous. And that's what we are now. There's too much of a disconnectedness from nature, from a sense of responsibility and ethics and honor and character. And that is dangerous to the fabric of a civilization. So I think that who among us doesn't need to step it up? Mm-hmm. Who among us doesn't need to look at the places where we're not quite as gracious as we might be? That includes myself, includes any of us on any given day.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Could I have played that better?
Yeah.
Well, you have spoken off camera. You have your own personal challenges.
Yeah.
But the way you have described your situation, you're showing up. And that's what we can do. If someone needs you, who loves you, show up. Now, I think that is true politically as well. If you have 12,000 children on the planet, starving every day when there's no dearth of food, my God, show up. I mean, there are so many situations where I think we are called, not only individually, but also collectively, to step it up in terms of goodness, pure goodness, which I think is common sense.
Which is Jesus.
Jesus is one name for this.
Right.
I think all the great religious systems provide a portal. Mm-hmm. And I believe Jesus is a portal. The Jesus in that book, the mystic Jesus, being really an articulation of who he is in a set of books called A Course in Miracles. Mm-hmm. Remember, the Course is not a religion. It's a psychological mind training in the relinquishment of that thought system based on fear, the acceptance instead of a thought system based on love.
It was interesting because very similar to your journey, I first picked up A Course in Miracles many years ago, and then I started following you, and I would go on La Brea to hear you speaking years ago. And I mentioned before, volunteer for Project Angel Food. So started understanding this world more. Still did not pick up A Course in Miracles again, but understood the concepts and really dove into it. And then as I read your book, for the first time, it opened up a different way of thinking around Jesus. And
Jesus was a Jew.
Right.
The Jewish people don't have a problem with Jesus. We have an understandable problem at times with the history of Christianity, the Inquisition, pogroms, etc.
Right.
And of course, I talk in the book. The opening of the book is about my being Jewish, and this is not about, the Course in Miracles says students of the Course come from all religions and no religion. They are those who have heard the call for what is going on. There's a television show right now. Have you watched this, Nobody Wants This?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think it's a great
It's
show, actually.
great.
But I also think its popularity emerges from this deep hunger that this, they call him the hot rabbi. That somebody can be hot, cool, everything you want,
Totally.
and his life is about goodness.
Right.
His life is about goodness, and that touches something deep. We've talked about the pathology. We've talked about the toxicity. We've done so much investigation of the darkness, and now I think there's a hunger to see, well, what does the light look like? What does goodness look like? What does character look like? Can that be hot too? Oh yeah. In fact, it might even just save a planet.
Yeah, I mean, I have, my partner here today, and I was like, maybe I need to go the rabbi route.
Very funny.
No, but honestly, I think you're right, though, about even just because we all are searching. Every one of us is searching for that thing. I always say joy, because when you ask people what they want most, they always talk about to be happy. And for me, joy is about the full alignment with ourselves, and the full expression, which is ultimately love.
And it's a sober joy, a sober happiness. A deep, mature recognition. It's a happiness from within. It's not this necessarily rah happiness and this cheap yellow smiley face. Be happy. It's exactly what you said. It's comfort within your own skin and a sense that all is well with the universe.
Yes, exactly. And that's what, they actually talk about joy scientifically, and they have found in our nervous system that it's definitely different than happiness, but it's often about a reconnection to ourselves or to things that are important to us. And that's why it's always an internal.
Well, there's so much that's happening these days with the brain and brain research. The Course in Miracles says that at their peak, psychotherapy and religion become one, because it's all about the healing of the mind. Mahatma Gandhi said the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. What will it take for us to become the people willing to inhabit the space of this moment in a way that enables us to both endure the chaos and the turbulence, as well as to transform it? And I think for that we were born. And we have to remind each other that. And we have to stop it with are you okay today? What wound, what trauma can we discuss? Not that there aren't wounds and traumas, and I would know actually. But there's a certain point where we need to turn around and say, what great thing are you doing today, and how can I help? That has to be the space we're in. There's plenty of room. You take your hours needed to cry, and you get out there and you change the world. I always say you pray in the morning, kick in the afternoon.
I love that. You talk, obviously, it's about the mind of love and the acceptance of this. Why do we have such an aversion, do you think, to love or to feeling? Or maybe, let me rephrase that, because I think we all want to love. It's just why we can't do it.
Well, there is, and every religious system has its own languaging for this. There is the opponent. So this is the way the Course in Miracles explains it. All mind has power of manifestation, because we are literally thoughts in the mind of God. But if we do not proactively use our thinking, use our own consciousness in the proactive direction of extending love, there is no such thing as a neutral thought. So any thought not used to extend love will be used to project fear. So when you're not loving, you're still very powerful. That's the thing we need to remember. That the Course in Miracles says you have the power to misuse your mind. You don't have the power to diminish its effects. So there is this, whether you call it the ego as it is in the Course in Miracles, call it the opponent, some call it Satan, but not a Satan that's something out there, something in here as in a temptation to perceive with love. And I think the deepest lesson that the Course in Miracles gives is it would ask, this is how the Course would answer that question. I don't know, why are you judging anybody right now? There is someone in my heart, in my mind, that I cannot say I have fully forgiven. Someone who, in terms of the world, caused damage. And I also know the parts of me that how did the man ever get into the room, blah, 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 why was the man ever hired, blah, blah, blah. But what is it in me, given that I know that my salvation, my happiness, my peace, my opportunity to begin again lies in forgiving him completely? What is that thing in me that to whatever extent is holding on? I have to look at that. The Course in Miracles says, do you prefer to be right or to be happy? So the Course says the best way for you to answer a question like that is to ask yourself, why in this moment am I withholding love from anyone.
Well, I'm just going to bring it back because you just reminded me. So the summer that my partner and I broke up, we had a big breakup many years ago, and I took off to Italy for the summer, and I brought A Return to Love with me. I hadn't read it, and we're obviously engaged now. So it returned me back first to the love within, which then brought him and I
So let
back
me ask you a
together.
question.
Yeah.
Did you have to look at your part in it all?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Course in Miracles says you have to take 100% responsibility for your own part. And that's really what the atonement is.
And you had me
all
understand that
minds are-
differently too.
Pardon?
You had me understand that differently too. Atonement, the crucifixion, all
Well, that's
all
what
of
the
that.
book is about. These, whether it's Mary and Joseph and the birth of Jesus and the ministry and the loaves into fishes and the crucifixion and the resurrection. What do these have to say? Not about one man's life 2,000 years ago, but about your life in every moment. And it makes me so happy. That's such a romantic story. You took Return to Love to Italy and it got you. And also, in the Course in Miracles, it says that all minds are joined. So as you were doing your work, he was feeling it.
I'm going to bring this up because you did run for president.
I did.
You did 2 times.
I did.
And I turned a lot of people over to you, but
Thank
not
you.
enough, but a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because after our conversation, it empowered me, number one, to really look at politics in a different way and to not shy away from it because of the joy and love space. And I know that it turned some people off because they only saw the love and they didn't know who this Marianne was. How do you merge or balance those two worlds together?
All that politics is our collective behavior. So you and I are sitting here talking about how can I be a good person? Well, how can we be a good nation? Why is it any different? The same psychological journey that prevails within the life of an individual prevails within the life of a nation, because all that a nation is a group of individuals. And when you are, particularly a country as powerful as ours, whether we like it or not, just how big we are, how powerful we are, when we get it right, we have been at times a blessing on the world. This idea of being disconnected from politics in the name of spirituality is this modern aberrational perspective, in my mind, based on the dictates of capitalism more than on the dictates of true humanitarian and democratic values. I have never read of any religion or spiritual tradition that gives any of us a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. How, when we're here and we're in Los Angeles, and you might know I'm the founder of Project Angel Food. How did Project Angel Food come about? It came about because I was giving these Course in Miracles lectures every Saturday, every Tuesday, every Sunday. Here we're talking about love, 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 and all these gay men are coming in, all this suffering of people who have AIDS or have family with AIDS. What, we're gonna just sit here and talk about love and not address the suffering in our midst?
Can we reshape the world with love?
We better.
Yeah.
We have about 10 minutes left to do so. It's not midnight yet, but this is the 11th hour. We are born at an extraordinary moment of turbulence, but also possibility. And this isn't the time for men to be little boys. It's not the time for women to be little girls. It's a time for all of us to look at everybody and go, okay, let's do this now. Let's be really big people. And we absolutely have the time. But there is no time to tarry, I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's why your book is so important right now.
Thank you.
And I genuinely mean that, because like I said, I didn't understand. I didn't read the Bible.
Yeah, right. We didn't read that one. My mother would say,
Right.
we read the other one, darling. But you know what? I think for a lot of people who are not raised as Christians, those of us who are Jews or some other, it's almost like easier because we just didn't know what those terms were one way or the other. A lot of people have to go through a lot of ambivalence,
Right.
and unlearning old things.
And opening up. And that's why I want to encourage people, I think no matter where they are in their journey, if they are someone who is devout and this is blasphemy to them, or if they just have no interest, to open it up, to just see it from a place of spirituality, of love. I mean,
Listen,
that's what I want to encourage people to do.
No book is for everybody.
Right.
I'm not saying, no matter who you are, this book's for you. I'm not. I'm just saying, check in with your own gut. That might be something for me. And if it is, check it out. That's all I'm saying. And I just want the book to find its way into the hands of people who would find comfort there and inspiration and hope and those aha moments. That's what you said you'd written. Every writer just hopes something I say is some aha for somebody. That's my hope. And I hope it's Ahas for the people
You give lots of
who
ahas.
are looking for. Thank you.
That's why you've been doing 4 decades of
Thank
ahas.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And speaking of 4 decades, we're going to cut to a commercial.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to have a little fun together
Okay.
about some of your work. So I hope you're up for that.
Thank you.
Okay. And you stay right there. When David Kramer was scrolling through Facebook, he stumbled upon a call for help that he couldn't ignore. An injured bald eagle had been spotted hobbling around on a dock, unable to fly. As the director of Washington College's Center for Environment and Society's River and Field campus and a seasoned bird rescuer, David knew he had to act fast. Grabbing 2 colleagues, he jumped in his truck and set out to find the majestic bird. With an injured wing and foot, the eagle was understandably scared at first, but eventually allowed David to gently wrap it in a padded blanket. They rushed the eagle to the Tri-State Bird Rescue, where it underwent surgery and is now on the path to recovery. Thanks to David's quick thinking, this bald eagle will soon be soaring high once again. So now for my favorite part of the show, where I get to connect with you, my viewer. A viewer wrote in and asked, "Dear Shari, how do you know if starting a new chapter in your life is the right choice?" Jumping into a new chapter is like swapping out your well-worn sweatpants for a spandex jumpsuit. Terrifying, but thrilling. One minute you're sipping tea and knitting in your cozy nook, and the next you're at a salsa dance class accidentally elbowing your partner in the eye. It's a wild ride filled with bizarre characters, unexpected plot twists, and the occasional faceplant. Life is about embracing it all. And remember, if you trip over your own feet, just laugh it off and make it part of the routine. And if it all gets too crazy, you can always retreat to your comfy sweatpants. Those never judge. And so I'm back with Marianne Williamson, and I thought that I would have a little fun with her, dig into her own work and see how well you know your own work.
That's going to be an interesting one.
I know. Well, I'm not choosing anything from the Mystic Jesus because I was like, let's go with some of your more longer decade work. So we're going to finish the famous quotes. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are
Powerful beyond measure.
a return to love. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards
I don't know. What did I say in which book?
a return to love. Sorry. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards
Inner peace.
freedom.
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 Okay.
This is from A Return to Love. Love is what we were born with. Fear is
What we have become here or are taught to be here.
learned.
Learned
same
here.
here.
Fear is what we learned here, right.
From A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
Miracles occur naturally as expressions of,
Love.
from A Course in Miracles. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find.
All the barriers you hold against its coming.
From A Course in Miracles. In every moment, we are either extending love or
Projecting fear.
from your own teachings. The more room you give yourself to express your true thoughts and feelings, the more probably any answer is good.
You're invulnerable to the lies and the neuroses and the pathologies of yourself and others.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
Also, there's more room for wisdom to emerge.
That too.
Yes, there's a lot there. A Course in Miracles. The spiritual journey is the relinquishment or unlearning of
Fear. And the acceptance of love back into our hearts.
exactly. And a return to love. You are a child of God. Your playing small does not
Serve the world.
Very good. You did great.
Scared there for a second.
I know. All right. And now I want to dig a little into your personal side. So
Okay.
I'm going to throw out some quick fire questions
Okay.
for you. So the first one is, who in your life has been your greatest spiritual teacher?
Men.
I might have to agree with that. Do you want to share that greatest lesson that a man has taught you? No? Okay, fair enough. I just thought I'd throw that out there. If joy were a color, what color would it be for you today?
Multicolored rainbow.
What's one book beside your own that you think everyone should read for spiritual growth?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say should, but
Okay.
I
Encourage.
believe obviously A Course in Miracles is tremendous. You know, a book that has meant a lot to me recently that is not written within a spiritual context. It's a philosophical context, but it is really profound, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Really something. And then also, of course, Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke.
If you had to describe your life mission in one word, what would it be?
Try to be a better person.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It was from myself. Get over yourself. It's not about you.
It's not about you.
Not about you. Get over yourself.
Damn it. If you could have dinner with any spiritual figure, past or present.
Oh, spiritual figure, past or present. Oh, spiritual figure, past or present, it would be Jesus, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Who wouldn't be at least curious?
Except I would want him to turn the water into wine.
Yeah.
What is something that secretly brings you joy?
There's just something that happens sort of at the end of the day when I take time to sort of put it all together, and I have my iPad, it's just kind of like some time to just, and I'm like, yeah, I like this. And then especially when my daughter texts me pictures of that.
In blue capes.
I love
blue
that
capes. And thank you for loving us all into more love.
Thank you so much.
And now it's time to go talk to some peeps on the street on today's.
So we decided to flip the script, and I'm going to ask you some questions.
Oh, it's a good thing I wrote these questions for other people.
What's the most embarrassing thing you've done in public but still laugh about?
I walked out of a public restroom and my dress was in my pantyhose. So it was not funny at the time, but now I can look back and be like, oh my God, but it still gives me the cringe.
What's your favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
Oh, anything reality. Like I watch The Housewives, I watch The Vanderpump, I watch The Challenge. Like I watch anything where it's other people's lives that I get to look in and forget about mine. Not that I don't love my life, but sometimes you do need to tune out.
What's a totally useless talent that you have?
Speed talking, like speed reading. Speed reading, yeah, like verbally.
Yeah.
Here, okay. Who's the more romantic one? Who said I love you first? Who takes longer to get ready? Who takes a better cook? Who's more likely to forget an anniversary or special date? Who's more likely to start an argument? Who spends more time? I used to do much better, but now I can barely keep up and read.
Last question. If you could make one thing socially acceptable, no questions asked, what would it be?
I think just randomly breaking out in dance and song while you're walking down the street. Like my entire life is a musical in my head. And so like, I would love to just be walking and be like, I love the sky, the stars. Okay, see? And this is why it is not socially acceptable because they might take me away. But yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to see you next time on Good Morning Joy, where every day starts with a smile.